The weekend is over. I'd like to go ahead and share my spoiler-filled thoughts about Captain America: Brave New World. Let's get to it. So starting off from the very beginning, this movie does a very good job at setting that like political thriller type tone. And I quite enjoyed that, from the musical scores to just the setup and style of how everything is. I like that a lot. However, one thing that put a sour taste in my mouth right away was this iconic MCU intro. Not having that in there kind of threw everything off and kind of had me just like thinking about why would they not include that. And that kind of distracted me from the very beginning of this film, but I was easily able to grasp myself back into it. The thing that I have to say that I enjoyed much more than I thought I would was the action sequence. The aerial sequence when Captain America and Falcon, the new Falcon, are flying over Tiamat Island and everything like that, I thought it was awesome. However, when Joaquin gets hit by that missile and fell into the ocean, I didn't feel like an impact because we're not familiar with his character. He's been in a TV show that not many people watched and a little bit of this movie. It's not like when you saw Rhodes get hit with a missile in Civil War and you hear that thump and that crash and like your heart kind of almost drops for him. You don't feel that with this character because we haven't had enough time with him. For us to have these emotional connections and feelings with these characters, they need to have them in more projects until they do something as high consequence of what they did. The third act of fighting with the Red Hulk was really fun. It was much better than I thought it was going to be. And the only thing I would say was that you could definitely tell when there are scenes that were reshot because the green screen and the CGI, they were just terrible. But I think they were doing reshoots up until a month before this movie came out, so I can't give it too much hate for that. The beginning action sequence in the first act was fun, but it did feel a little choppy with the hand-to-hand combat. They used Captain America and the Winter Soldier as inspiration for this movie, but this literally just felt like a Temu version of that movie. And what I mean by that is that it looks good online. When you get it, the quality's not that great, but you can still have some fun with it. So it's like a shadow of a much greater film. You can't help but just feel that they tried to use the same exact structure that they did in The Winter Soldier. So if you had watched that movie before this one, you honestly might not like this movie at all. For me, I didn't rewatch any of them because I didn't want to have that high of an expectation going into it, and I think that ended up working out in my favor. What I mean by a structured copy of The Winter Soldier is that, for example, when they fight in Mexico at the very beginning, where I had said the hand-to-hand combat was a little bit choppy, it felt like it was a copy of the boat fight from the Winter Soldier at the very beginning. Just not as entertaining, not as gripping and intense. And to go into Isaiah Bradley's assassination attempt on President Ross, it felt like when Captain America was attacked in the elevator. So like different kind of styles of it, but just the good guys going rogue. It seemed like a copy of that too. And that elevator scene is just cooler in every way. The scene with Sidewinder when he blows up Sam's truck, it seems again just like a copy of when Bucky or the Winter Soldier and Captain America fought in the street. It's literally the same exact thing. It's a street fight and hand-to-hand combat. Just it flowed so much better in Captain America 2 versus this one. It wasn't a bad scene by any means. It just wasn't a great scene. When it came to the shift in the movie, when it's discovered that Samuel Stearns, aka the leader, is the one behind all of this, it felt a lot like when Cap and Natasha discovered that Zola was the one behind all of Hydra and everything like that. But it was leaked and announced that Tim Blake Nelson was going to be in this movie. So this like reveal of him, it wasn't that shocking, whereas the Zola one is like, oh, okay, this guy's living in a computer. I didn't even expect him to be having new dialogue in this movie at all, so that was just a much bigger surprise. Lastly, at the end of the movie, when Joaquin's in the hospital and he's talking to Mackie, it kind of just felt like another echo of the very end when Steve was in the hospital next to Falcon, Sam Wilson's character as well. So so much of it just felt like, okay, let's take this, but do it like this instead. And it just didn't come out as good or as fluent. These moments that just felt very similar, they weren't cheesy by any means, but it was almost like that meme where it's just like, hey, here's my homework. You can copy it, but just change it up a little bit so nobody notices. And we notice. While I do like most of the cast in this movie, Giancarlo Esposito's Sidewinder, it could have been played by anybody. They really just got him in there to just tell the audience the answers to questions that were made all the way back in 2008 during The Incredible Hulk. So he didn't really add any sort of particular value or anything to the movie. The actress that played Ruth just didn't convince me as a former widow. When you look at the actresses like Scarlett Johansson or Florence Pugh, they look, sound, and act like the embodiment of a woman and just give that aura. of like a badass female character. And this person, I don't know her name, but this actress, she just seemed like a 12-year-old girl was playing it. It wasn't convincing at all. She's like 5 foot nothing, maybe even shorter. And it just, when she goes up to fight these giant 6 foot, 200 and something pound men, and she's just beating the shit out of them, it isn't convincing. Whereas a scene like this from Iron Man 2, that's convincing to me. I don't know why. It is. It's just the difference of someone that honestly looks and sounds and acts like a child versus one that looks and sounds and acts like an adult. So nothing against her as a person. I obviously don't know her as a person, but it was the most useless character in this movie entirely. In addition to that, the actress that played Secret Service agent to President Ross just was not a good actress. Her lines were just so stale, and that could be something in the writing and not necessarily her herself, or maybe she's just not ready for a big budget movie like this one. But it was almost like she acted the way Blake Lively does in Green Lantern. While I was watching this, Anthony Mackie actually sold me as him being Captain America. I believed it. He was very confident in his role as Cap. He wasn't like down on himself or anything like that, like he was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier the whole time questioning himself. But then there's a moment in the movie where he does do that. And it's like, dude, we've been through this through your TV show. Like, we don't need to go back to questioning and self-doubting yourself after you just had this extreme confidence for being Captain America for a couple years now. Like, how do you be this character for a few years and then just go back to, I don't know, why should I be Cap? At one moment, it's like he took 3 steps back for me. And then Bucky had to come in and pump him back up, which to me just further proves Bucky should have been the one to take over the mantle anyways. But who knows? Maybe this scene was written just so Bucky could have a cameo, and in that instance, I guess I could forgive it. One thing I liked as well is that being Captain America now, Anthony Mackie had to take more of a serious approach to it because Joaquin, the new Falcon, is the new comedic relief. And Mackie was his usual self at times, but to have to kind of flip your character in that way, I like the way that he did it. And you just can't have too many comedic reliefs in the movie, otherwise it just feels congested and doesn't flow well. Biggest letdowns for me was the CGI, but at the same time, this has been a Marvel issue for years now, so I can't really blame the movie too much on something that's a studio problem. I don't know what they need to do, but it's got to get fixed. You can tell when they did the retouch because the green screen was just so terribly bad. I mean, I don't have a green screen, but if I had one, I could probably do something better than what they do. I don't understand how these movies have these huge budgets, and you can just tell when it's so fake. You could just see the clear outline of the person and just the fake background that they have. So that's one of my major dislikes about this movie, as well as almost the entire third act being spoiled just by the main trailers that you would see before you go see another movie. There was so much of the Red Hulk fight that was in there that none of it really came as a surprise. There was maybe like 2 moments where like, oh, that wasn't in the trailer. It wasn't even that it was cool or exciting. It just wasn't in the trailer. So I feel like that kind of took away the impact of like how epic on a grand scale a Red Hulk fight could be. The movie very much feels like a tale of two tales by starting at this grounded spy thriller movie, but isn't really all that thrilling, to this out of nowhere fantastical fight movie. Like, to put it simply, once it changes and the leader is shown to the audience and then there's the fight over the island and then the Red Hulk fight, it just went a route that it wasn't, not that it wasn't interesting, it just wasn't a thriller anymore. It wasn't even trying to be that. I don't really know what it was trying to be. It would have been cool to have them fight actually over the adamantium itself within the island and show like the mining sites and all that, and like actually go into the island and see what's inside the Celestial. Like, if you want to add fantastical elements, at least do something like that. Add a little bit more oomph to it, you know? And just adding these elements of the leader, the Red Hulk, and Tiamat Island and all that just shifted it from a political thriller to something that was a little bit more fantastical, and it ended up being just anticlimactic because so much of it was given away in the trailers. What I did appreciate is that it actually felt connected again to other MCU projects. Obviously, it connects to The Incredible Hulk all the way back in 2008, almost 20 years ago now. And it connects to Questions in Eternals. Doesn't answer all the questions, but it answers some of them. It at least makes it feel like one big cohesive story, and this is just a chapter in that story, which I really liked. I also believe that the years of reshoots that they did made this film the best film that it could possibly be, given the circumstances that happened with strikes, shifts in political tones, both in the movie and in real life, and also just changes that they had to make to characters along the way. Despite its flaws, this was an enjoyable film to an extent. I didn't walk out of it upset or feel like I wasted my time like I have some of these other movies, especially in this multiverse saga. They've been real hit and miss with these movies. So this one, I wasn't like disappointed in it by any means. It did kind of suck to have the leader leaked, I guess you could say, or like announced that Tim Blake Nelson was reprising his role. I feel like that could have been a really good, like, oh crap moment when he was revealed in the movie. So I understand that it's a little bit of a corner of the audience that kind of knows about those kind of things. But still, it would have been nice to just not even have him in it at all, not have him at the press conference or press releases or whatever they do or anything like that. I was happy to see Bucky in the movie. It's a Captain America movie. You have to have Bucky in it. And to my knowledge, that wasn't leaked, or maybe it was and I just didn't believe it because he was filming Thunderbolts. So that was a really nice touch. One other little Easter egg that I liked that not many people would catch on, because I haven't seen many people bring it up, is that the leader, Tim Blake Nelson's character, when he would mind control people, he would have a song playing, and the song goes like, it has the lyrics of "I'm Mr. Blue," and if you don't know, that was his code name back into the Incredible Hulk. That was his code name to Bruce Banner, so that way the government couldn't track who exactly they were. So I thought that was a nice touch. In my opinion, if we had this exact movie last February and then had a long break of MCU films up until now, and had Deadpool and Wolverine released now with the inclusion of Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four, I think this year would have started off with a hit movie and gone on for 2 more other hits before getting to Avengers next year. I think this would have been a solid 2025 if they had done that, but they didn't, so it is what it is. Looking ahead, in my opinion, I believe that Mackie can be a leader in solo films. I'm just not too sure about how he would do with an ensemble film. I would like to see him have 1 or 2 more films before actually getting to that. In my opinion, it took Chris Evans up until The Winter Soldier to kind of find his footing and like finalize that he is the leader of the Avengers. And as for Anthony Mackie, I guess only time will tell. We'll see what happens in Avengers Doomsday. If they continue this franchise in future installments, I'd like to see a little bit more experienced directors and writers. I think now, though, that this director has some MCU miles, he might be able to learn from his mistakes and apply them to a future film and make them pretty good. However, if they're going to keep going these thriller routes with Captain America, I'd like to see somebody like David Fincher take on the project as a director. He does great thriller movies. So while this review may seem a little bit more negative, I did have fun with this movie overall. It's not all bad, and like I said, with some of the films we've gotten in this multiverse saga, this is one of the ones I would rewatch more than a few others. This film had its flaws for sure, but to me, I feel like it's a pathway back to what Marvel used to be, and it has laid the groundwork for what it can be in the future as well. There are pieces of here that feel like great classic MCU moments, and if they could just take those and expand on them and just give more of an emphasis to it, a lot of these movies that they've been making could be really good. You could take these directors that don't have much experience and kind of pair them up with the old ones to give an insight on how to expand those moments, like the moments where Bucky and Sam are in the hospital talking. Something like that. It could be just broader and better in multiple different ways. So again, like the aerial fight, that was cool too, but it was a little bit choppy. If they just had a little bit more experience to refine it, it would be great. And I think if they build upon the groundwork that was laid in this movie, they can make an excellent 5th film, in my opinion. So overall, my final rating for this movie, as a movie itself, I would say it's probably a 7 out of 10. As an MCU film, I would probably give it about a 6 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about the movie down below if you saw it. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your likes and your dislikes of the movie. Tell me your likes and dislikes of Marvel in general. And be sure to let me know what you're looking forward to in the future. See you guys in the next video.